It's Don here from the board. Thanks for coming along and checking out this video. So, as the title of this video explains and describes, today I'm going to be checking out and going through what PCBWay offers. Now, in previous videos of PCBs that I've designed and created, so I'm talking about, for example, the FanPad V2, the FanPad V3, the Big Switch PCB, and I think I've also briefly sort of mentioned on some of the podcasts, and I've shown on Reddit the Missile Pod as well. I've been using the PCB service all PCB. So, these, there we go, all PCB. I haven't had a problem with with all PCB service and whatnot, and so I was happy to stick with them. But PCBWay actually came and contacted me and said, hey, we see that you do sort of PCB work. Would you be interested in entering our PCB competition? And I went, oh, okay, what's this all about? And so they sent me a link and said, hey, we've got a service where we make PCBs and people can share them. And there's going to be a contest run for the best PCB design as judged by some PCB engineers and electrical engineers. And then there'll be the most popular PCB design by public vote. So I quickly created a little product, I suppose. I designed a PCB and I submitted it on the competition. But then I thought, it's only a tiny little PCB, 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters was what the actual competition design brief said it had to be. So we're talking 4 inches by 4 inches. That's actually quite small, right, by comparison. And I thought, you know what, I might as well give PCBWay a shot and see what their production is like, what their quality is like, what their packaging is like, because, it's an option out there. Price-wise and everything else, it's a bit hard to say because, it's very hard to compare unless if you're manufacturing and producing the same size PCB. So I can't really compare the cost simply because what I've had done by them is going to be different to what I've done by all PCB. So, to make things fair, let's go through the website, have a look at what they offer, the process that's involved, and then I can open up this DHL package that came from PCBWay. See, I keep getting this jumbled up because, they're very similar names, and check out the quality and the build and all that kind of stuff. So, let me switch off certain things temporarily, and here we go. So here's the PCBWay base website. You can see that I've already logged in here. So things will be obviously a little bit different when I click into certain spots later on, but very similar to all PCB, they have on their landing page an instant quote feature. So you can actually put in the size of whatever it is that you're after into these dimension fields here, and then hit the quote. Now, what I find really interesting is the fact that they obviously have a lot of internal advertising and details and reviews and stuff like that. They now actually also have things here where they're sponsoring, for example, academic institutions or groups and projects, which is really, really cool. But they have this really cool feature, which is what they were promoting as part of the competition, this shared projects section. So let's just have a sort of quick zip and look at that because I wanted to show you this because that's how I actually got to PCBWay. So you can still see it's still part of PCBWay, but every one of these PCBs has been created by somebody, and you can actually go in and purchase them direct. You don't have to contact the owner, you don't have to run a group buy, you don't have to gain permissions because everything's shared here. If they've set their particular details, will be available for purchase. So you'll see that there's this banner here which says PCB design contest. That's basically so they can say, hey, these guys are part of the competition, and if you like them, you can hit like, and you'll see 36 views, 0 likes, 21 likes, 320 views, that kind of thing. Now, incidentally, this one's actually mine. So, I shared it on Reddit, and I shared it, I think, on one of the podcasts, and it's only had 8 likes. So that's a little bit sad for me. But since it's my design, let's just go into it quickly and have a look. So, I made this little pad you can see it's got the Gerber layers here, and it shows what it looks like on each of the layers. And over here, if you actually want to purchase it, you can just add it to cart right there. And whoever created this will actually get a 10% on the cost price. Now, I have actually no idea what this cost price is going to be. So if I was to add, I don't know, 1 or something like that to it, then you know, it'll actually come up with some value. Now, I'm not going to bother doing that because obviously I don't need to purchase one because I've got some. But this is really cool because it allows you to actually share PCBs, and you can sell them direct through PCBWay without having to have a site or, you know, a group buy or anything like that. So that's pretty nifty. But let's get back to the actual process and some of the bugbears that come along from PCBWay. So it's very, very similar to every other PCB manufacturer. You're going to put in your product. So let's just go 100 by 100. We're going to say a minimum of 5, 2 layers, everything else exactly stock standard, bog standard. You're going to hit calculate. Oh, forgot this. Yeah, sure, you can change it from hassle to enig. So that's like electro nickel immersion gold, I believe is what that means. So hot air soldered lead solder layer versus electroplated nickel immersion gold or something. It's just a different type of surface finish, right? Immersion gold is that one that they're kind of talking about. There are pros and cons between the two different types, but they're basically saying, do you want to do this sub? And I suspect it's because if they layer your PCB design with somebody else's that's doing enig, then of course it's a cost saving for them because they can make use of a wafer that otherwise would be potentially wasted or blank. So let's just hit the calculate, and over here it says it'll take 2 to 3 days to put it together. We're going to get 5 at $5 each, so that's $25 down here, plus postage, and it's going to be $30. And of course, if you're happy with this, you would actually hit that add to cart. Now, of course, at this point, you would need an account. I've already got an account, so it's gone straight in, and you would add the Gerber file. So I'm not going to add a Gerber file, but you're going to hit submit. I'm just going to skip all of this, and we're going to go straight into this, which is the one that I ordered it. No, this is the one I just went and did. So I'm going to remove that. Going to remove that. Deleted successfully because I don't want to order that. And I'm going to show you what we've got here. So this is a completed order, but you'll see the layout's very, very similar to how things are on other PCB sites. So we've got a particular customer service agent here. This is the cost amount. It has a button so you can share and sell it, just like I showed you before with the shared projects site. And then of course there's details about, you know, tracking where it's been sent, build time. But this is pretty cool because just like all PCB does, it also shows you the process and how fast they do things and all of these things that happen. Now, this is where we get some of the unusual things, which is that on all PCB, you submit your Gerber, you pay for it, and then they do the check and produce if there's no problems found. On PCBWay, you submit your Gerber, they do the check, then they ask you for payment if there's no problems found. Okay, so the workflow up here, right, is different. So you quote, you put your file, they will check your Gerber file for issues, then they ask you for money. Now, these two steps here flipped around will obviously be a hassle for some and a convenience for others. Now, if you're a newbie like me and you don't do very good PCBs and you miss stuff, this order works because it means they will go, hey, by the way, we haven't started fabbing this. There's problems. Let's fix them before you pay. Whereas if you're a professional PCB maker, designer, and you don't need them to do this auditing check, this is a hassle because especially if it's a very complex PCB or design, you're wasting time because you got to wait for somebody else on their side to check your work again and go, yep, it's good, give us money. So if this is going to be a deal breaker for you, that's just something to be aware of. You may have delays because someone is going to be reviewing your PCB files prior to payment. How's that different? Not really, in that if you pay and the review, it just happens, but now you have to wait for notification for them to tell you that it's done, and then pay for it. So yeah, it's not that big a deal for me. If it's an issue for you, then it's just something to consider. Right. And then of course, you pay it and it gets shipped. They give you the confirmation details and everything else is the same. Now I haven't sort of done any sharing in that I haven't gone to share pictures or anything like that, because obviously I haven't even opened it yet. And let's get on to doing that. So let's switch that. Let's go down back onto the desk. There it is. And back to me in the corner. Now, they sent it via DHL, and the only thing that kind of I found really amusing was the fact that when they sent it, they actually sent it to Mrs. Me. And so when I went to actually pick this up, the person behind the counter didn't want to release it to me because I was obviously not female. And I had to prove with my ID and the PIN number and everything else that it was in fact actually mine, and they had made a mistake in not putting Mr. So I don't know if that's a DHL issue or anything else like that, but yeah, just something to be amused by more than anything else. So let's see if can I even get into here without, have I sealed it? Oh, I think I could even get into this without cutting it open. I have to tear it a little bit. There we go. Right, that's tiny ass box in a very big bag. So it looks like it says PCBWay. It's taped, which means I'm going to have to get scissors anyway. It's a bit of crush damage there. I feel that by comparison to the all PCB box, it's a similar size, but their cardboard is thicker. The corrugated type of cardboard is just a tad thicker. It feels more sturdier compared to the PCB one. So I don't think it should be an issue. I mean, it definitely sounds like there's padding in there. What kind of padding, I don't know. So we'll find out very, very shortly. The crush damage on the box isn't really that bad, and PCBs are really durable anyway. They're quite flat. And since it was in a plastic satchel, there's really no risk of water damage. And here we go. So they've gone and used foam. So that's nice. A bit of strip foam. They've got a PCBWay Chinese Zodiac sticker. That's a bit random. Oh well. And then here is the order. It's also vacuum sealed with a thin layer of bubble wrap like we've seen on the all PCB, and that's it. So there's no real complaints about the fact that the box is a little bit thinner. Everything else seems to work. It's it's there. So we ordered 5 and it looks like we got 5. Now let's check out the actual silk. Let's check out the actual pads and the quality, and have some concluding remarks, shall we? If I don't cut myself to smithereens first. Okay. Woo! Alright. Probably should have used a sharper knife than this old Stanley knife. That's alright. So, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exact amount as ordered. So, on the front, it's what it looks like. It's, if the camera's not going to even bring it into focus. There we go. Bit of a focal plane there. Looks alright. Looks just like I had ordered. I had requested. Now if I just get my measuring and I look at that, it should be 14 mil. Yep, it's 14 mil, which is great. The pads are all plated. The through holes seem to be all good. Well aligned. The traces are quite distinct. my mount holes, the 2mm M2 fires are okay. Now, this is what I was really curious to see. I'm just going to shift in a little bit there. Is when I designed this for the competition, I thought, you know what, just for a bit of fun, I would make this super easy for beginners. And so when I mean I made it super easy for beginners, I would put a lot of detail into it. And so what I've done on the back here is I've actually imprinted the assembly order. So as you can see there, I've said diodes, pro micro headers, the switches, and then the pro micro. I've put my details and of course my show here, our show, the board podcast, and the creation date of this. And then I've even included the pin map when the Pro Micro is installed in the correct orientation. So you can see the rows and columns. Now I've also put in really tiny text, and this is a really good test. Maybe it's too much for my camera to handle, but and the fact that I'm holding it really unsteadily, you can see the TX and the RAW. That is tiny text, and their silkscreen detail comes out beautiful on it. So I'm actually really impressed. So that's the orientation for the Pro Micro when it's installed. The other thing that I sort of did with this is that you can see I've actually put the column and row orientation, so 0, 1, 0, 0, and 0, 2, and then the actual key number. So that way, you know if you're mapping things and you're doing something funny or unusual, what the actual position in the matrix is. And then of course you've actually got the pin orientation that I've said there as well. So in case for whatever reason you wanted to just refer to the actual specific pins, then I've actually also put the column and the row marks against the Pro Micro. So you know what, I'm actually pretty happy with that. It's not bad. It's not bad. Now, I just want to pull out a all PCB one because I want to compare their thickness of lines for the traces also. So this is my big switch PCB that I've got here. And now the text on this is obviously a different size because I made it a different size, so it's not fair to make that comparison. But this all 2IO blah 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 bit under the Pro Micro is just as tiny, right? If it'll focus, yeah, so that serial number there or whatever that is, I can't remember, is just as tiny, and it came out really well. So it's pretty cool. Now if I'm just comparing them, apples to apples, if the camera is gonna focus, there we go. So the thickness of the traces and the width of the traces look very, very similar. I would hazard a guess to say that the boundary between them on the PCBWay is actually possibly even slightly thinner. So they're about 1 mil wide from black edge to edge, whereas on the all PCB one, they're actually just a smidge bigger, just a fraction bigger. So I guess that just means you could probably route your traces a little bit closer because the tolerances that they've got here are probably a bit thinner. So and you can kind of see, they do run quite thin. So that particular pin placement, I've been able to successfully run it really close to the hole there, the through hole for the actual foot of the switch. So there you go. It's pretty nifty. Rounded corners, there's no sort of obvious weird bits, and I didn't forget my solder mask this time, so I didn't end up with some horrible dodgy thing. Now, these are meant to be Alps compatible, so there we go. Alps are in, which is cool. There's no plate, of course, so these will wobble like heck. And then for an MX compatible switch, there we go, MX compatible switch, and the other side fits perfectly. So I think it ticks all the requirements. Came fast. It was manufactured within a couple of days whenever I had lodged it. So I'd lodged it on the 24th, and I got it yesterday So yesterday was the 28th. So it was actually 8 days, including the weekend. So you know what? I'm actually pretty happy with that. Is that 8 days? 24th? No, that was 4 days. Yeah, because of the 28th. So it was actually 4 days from when I submitted it to when I got it. There you go. So it's really up to you to make up your own mind on if you want to give PCBWay a crack and a chance. I can't really say much about pricing, in that obviously between the different companies they're going to have probably similar competitive pricing, but at the same time different pricing. They might have deals and specials. Their volume pricing might be different, you know, those kind of things. It's a business related matter, so I'm really only focusing on quality and speed of build. And for this very simple sort of macro pad, really is yeah, ticks all the boxes, no issues with it whatsoever. And depending on the price, I guess I would be more than happy to continue to use PCBWay. So there you go. There you have it. At some point in time, of course, I'll probably build one of these guys. Yeah, not sure what I'm going to do with this PCBWay sticker. So, well, thanks very much for checking out the video. Of course, if you like the video, please hit like. If you want other people to check it out because they're thinking of using PCBWay or another PCB manufacturer, then please share it so that they can check out this review, see the quality, and any of the other considerations that I may have mentioned. If you have never come across our podcast, you know, please check it out. You can find us at www.theboardpodcast.com. You can also find us on Patreon. You can buy us a copy with a link down below in the video. You can hit us up on Reddit, you know, or even on Facebook. We're all over the place. And yeah, now that we have Instagram and Slack, you can keep in contact with us there. If you do want to get onto our Slack group, please send us a message with an email address, and then we can actually send an invite to you as well by email. So there you go. There you have it. PCBWay. Quick, relatively good, passable PCB manufacturing, place that you can sell your own design relatively easily and get a 10% commission. Yeah, awesome. Thanks very much. Of course, until next time, happy clacking.